Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here today for our Microsoft OneNote for the web version training on behalf of Washington DVA. Please do note that as we are going through today's demonstration, we will be utilizing OneNote for the web. However, we will call out some key differences between that web version and also the desktop version. Please note that there are several iterations of OneNote on the desktop, so depending on which one you are currently utilizing, you may see some subtle differences in the visuals of that OneNote environment. But again, we will be focusing mainly on the web version, which should be consistent for everyone here. Now for today's session, your Microsoft trainer is the one and only Pautui Pelotu. My name is Grace Kim, also joined here by Nick Vorzinger. Please feel free to ask your questions in the chat box you see on the right-hand side of your call window throughout the hour, and we will go ahead and answer those accordingly. Now, you also do have some meeting controls, so we do ask that during the presentation you do keep yourselves on mute. However, any time we have remaining at the end of the hour, we will open up for Q&A. You will notice here that within your meeting controls, you have your unmute button, which is in the icon of a microphone so that you can come on and off mute. You also do have the raise your hand feature. Now you'll find that either at the top bar of your meeting window if you're joining us here from a desktop environment, or if you're on the web, you will find that somewhere in the middle of your screen as you hover over. When you raise that hand digitally, what we will see on our end is a little icon showing that your hand is raised. And again, we can go ahead and call on folks at the end of the hour for any time that we have remaining for Q&A. And without further ado, Pal, I will hand it over to you to kick off today's OneNote for the web training session.
Perfect. Thank you for the introductions, Grace. Good morning, everyone. And before we jump into our content for today, we do have just a few more slides to go through just to help set the stage for what we're going to be focusing on today. Now, as for our agenda, we have three major areas that we'll be focusing on. We'll be introducing everyone to OneNote on the web while also making specific callouts to the desktop version of OneNote as well. We'll take a look at how we can create a notebook, as well as collaborating with a team within your different notebooks. And if time allows us at the end of the hour, then we'll go ahead and answer any questions that we have throughout the session. Now, with OneNote, you can sort content across notebooks with sections and pages to keep your busy world organized. You can highlight notes that are important, as well as being able to add specific tags to help ensure that you're able to complete your tasks and organize everything in one cohesive way. And when it comes to navigating and searching throughout OneNote, you'll find that just jumping through the different notebooks that you have and being able to find the content that you're looking for can be fairly straightforward and fairly easy to navigate. Now, on top of being able to keep all of your ideas in one area, OneNote offers other features like highlighting, ink annotation, and more to bring your thoughts to life on the digital page. You also may have the option to record audio notes, insert online videos, and even add file attachments. And all of these changes, all of these items that you put into your OneNote will actually sync across multiple devices. So long as you're signed in to the same Microsoft account, you will generally be able to access any of the resources from those notebooks from virtually any device. And with that in mind, we also want to take note that we can get more done when we work together when it comes to OneNote. So sharing and collaborating in OneNote is, again, very straightforward. You can annotate notes, share ideas, and work together in real time with your coworkers, colleagues, anybody that you're working on within your OneNote. You'll be able to come together and be able to do whatever work you need to. Now, with all of that talking out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into our content for today. If you give me just a quick moment to pull down my PowerPoint slides. All right, we should have visibility over my desktop. Now, again, we will be working within the web version of OneNote, but I'd like to take a quick note and take a small detour just to talk about the different versions of OneNote, as it can be a little confusing depending on which versions you're used to, which ones you have available through your license, so on and so forth. So when it comes to OneNote, there are going to be three major versions that you'll find. Two of them will be found within your desktop, so follow my cursor as we go into the bottom left-hand corner into our Start menu. And We're going to scroll down until we get to O for OneNote. Now, you're going to notice that there may be two versions that you find available. There is OneNote, and then there is OneNote for Windows 10. OneNote is what was originally called OneNote 2016, and this is available on most Windows 10 devices, along with Windows 10 OneNote for Windows 10. Now, regardless of which version you'd like to use, both of them will still be able to sync with one another, but you will find some visual differences between the two that can be a little bit confusing if you're not used to the OneNote environment. Now, if we're going to access OneNote online, then there is a specific process that we will need to follow. So first and foremost, what you do need to make sure you do is go to the browser that you'd like to use. In this case, we'd like to go ahead and use Microsoft Edge for today. And we can go to OneNote by first going to the search bar at the top and typing in office.com. Once you typed in office.com, you'll hit the enter button, and this will bring you to your Office 365 homepage. Now you may need to sign in and verify yourself. Once you have indeed verified yourself and logged into your account, you can double check in the top right hand corner where you'll see your profile icon. This is just a good way to double check and make sure you are signed into the correct account, as being signed into the correct account means you have access to the resources that are tied to said account. Once you've verified and made sure that you are signed into the correct account, we're going to move over to the left hand side where we have our navigation rail. Now, the navigation rail will showcase the major Microsoft applications near the top, specifically Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. If you bring your cursor down just a little bit further, you'll see that OneNote icon, which is a purple notebook with the letter N to the left of it. If you don't see OneNote here, no worries. In the bottom left-hand corner of your navigation rail, you'll notice that there is an All Apps option. Clicking on All Apps will bring you to your Office 365 applications, showing all the different Office applications that are tied to your account. Now, because we are using a demo tenant for today, you may notice that there's some applications you may not have. And again, that's perfectly fine. For purposes of our demo for today, we are again focusing on OneNote. You can find OneNote in alphabetical order in O once again. So once we click into that OneNote, we'll be taken to our OneNote environment. Now, the OneNote environment will still be here within our Office 365 environment, so everything should still look fairly similar to what we saw previously. You're going to notice that we have a few different tabs near the middle part of our screen, along with our new notebook option at the top. Going through these different tabs, you'll find that you have your recent tabs. Now, this recent tab will be helpful in being able to show all the recent notebooks that you've worked with. If you find that you work in a specific notebook on a regular basis, you'll generally be able to find it a lot quicker since it'll generally be near the top of your list. Now, you'll notice that as I hover my cursor over our notebook, if we move it further to the right near the center of the screen, we'll notice that we have a little pin icon. This is how you'll be able to pin the different notebooks that you'll be working in. When you pin a notebook, that then adds it to the pinned tab within the list up above. Now, this pinned area is a way for you to be able to keep track of specific notebooks, regardless of how long it might have been since you've last accessed it. This is a good way just to help keep visibility over those specific notebooks and be able to pull from them at any point in time. Now, you'll notice at the top of our screen, before we move on to the rest of the tabs, that we have a search bar. And this search bar can come in handy as this will allow you to search throughout your entire Microsoft Office environment. So here you'll be able to type in the names of documents or notebooks that you'd like to search for. This is again going to be one way that you'll be able to search for those different notebooks, but to help ease up on having to go through and find using that search bar, you can pin whatever notebooks you need for quick access. In this case, let's go ahead and click on it again, and you'll see that our notebook is now pinned, readily available for us to use. The next tab that we have is going to be My Notebooks. Now, My Notebooks is going to showcase any of the created notebooks that you have that's tied to your account. In this case, you'll see that I don't actually have any notebooks created, so we'll be going and creating our notebook from scratch so we can see what the process looks like. Next, we have our Shared with Me. The Shared with Me tab will showcase any OneNote notebooks that have been shared with you. Think of it as another way to categorize the varying notebooks that you'll be working in. If you have any ideas of whether or not it's a notebook that you have recently used, if it's a notebook that was pinned by you, a notebook that you created yourself, or a notebook that was shared with you, this will generally help you navigate and find the notebooks that you're searching for. Now, the last option that we have is going to be Discover. Now, Discover is going to be an interesting tab as this will essentially show any documents that other users have been working on. So, if there are specific notebooks within your organization that are regularly being accessed, regularly being used, this is where those notebooks, as well as other documents, depending on which of the Office applications online you're using, will showcase. Now, I'd also like to pay close attention to the top right-hand corner, where we see that there's a little note here letting us know that any new notebooks that are saved, or created in this case, will be saved to our OneDrive. Now, OneDrive is going to be your cloud storage solution that's tied to your M365 license. Think of it like a hard drive that you don't have to plug into your computer all the time. All you need to do is make sure that you're signed in to the right account, and you'll be able to access your files, in this case, your OneNote notebooks, through OneDrive, through again, virtually any device, so long as you're signed into the account, and so long as the device you're using is work compliant. So now that we've gone ahead and taken a look at our environment, we've taken a look at some of the different tabs we have, let's go ahead and create a brand new OneNote notebook. We're going to go ahead and take one step above and click on New Notebook. Now the first thing that you need to do is name your notebook. Now when it comes to naming your notebooks, you want to ensure that the name you're using is both distinct and easily recognizable. Rather than just putting names such as Notebook 1, Notebook 2, you may want to create notebooks for different projects that you're working on. Maybe you're working with a specific group and you want to ensure that you can tell which notebook is for that group. You have a lot of control over what sort of name you have for your notebook. And so, again, having a very clear and distinct name can help ensure that it doesn't get lost in the myriad of other books that you're more than likely going to be working in. So in this case, let's go ahead and name our notebook for today, Washington DVA. You'll then click the Create button, and a new tab will open, bringing us to that new OneNote notebook. Now, you will need to sign in again just to verify yourself and ensure that you can create that notebook. Now that you've created your notebook, let's go ahead and take a tour around the environment so we have an idea of what we're working with. We're going to start in the top right hand corner and make our way to the left hand side, moving down, and then taking a look at our bar up above, letting us view any of the different tabs that we have. Now again, in the top right hand corner, we have our profile icon, just to double check and make sure we're signed into the correct account. If you do need to swap out, you can always click sign out and then sign back in. To the left of that icon, you'll notice that we have our notification icon. The notification icon will come in handy in just letting you know general ideas as to what's going on with your notebook. Maybe you have shared your notebook with someone else. You can get a notification letting you know that someone has opened or viewed your notebook on a different device. It just helps give you ideas and lets you know just how much your notebook is being used. To the left of our notification icon, we also have our gear icon. Now, the gear icon will give you a few different options when it comes to settings, such as your language and time zone, changing your password, contact preferences, as well as accessibility preferences. Accessibility preferences come in handy in being able to provide different tooltip assistance to help ensure that your notebook that you're using, and if you're sharing with others, is accessible to all. So we'll go ahead and enable that, and we'll see what ends up happening as we continue to fill out our notebook. Now, as we move to the middle top portion of our screen, you'll notice the name of our notebook. Again, the name that we created for today is Washington DVA. If you click on that icon, or the words or name of the notebook itself, you'll notice that we have our location. So this lets us know where our notebook is currently being saved. In this case, we see that our Washington DVA notebook is currently saved to my OneDrive. If we click on that OneDrive link, we'll actually open up a new tab, bringing us to our OneDrive. Within your OneDrive, you again can access all the different files that you have saved to your cloud storage. You'll notice that there's a special area here for notebooks within your files. Clicking on Notebooks, you'll be able to quickly see all the notebooks that you have created and have saved to your OneDrive. So again, this is just a nice way to be able to double check and make sure that you are saving your notebook in the proper space. Moving back to our OneNote, we're going to take one more step to the left, and you'll notice we have our 9-dot waffle or our app launcher. The 9-dot waffle app launcher will open up and show all the other Microsoft applications that you have tied to your account. This can be a nice way to multitask while you're working throughout the day. Maybe while you're working, there is a Word document that you want to reference. You can click on the application you want, and it'll open it up in a new tab. From here, you're able to navigate and jump back and forth between the different tabs that you're working on. Or in some cases, you can even pull up your OneNote on the left-hand side and your Microsoft Word document on the right-hand side to be able to cross-reference. Again, there's a lot of flexibility that you have when it comes to working with the Office suite, and it really comes down to personal preference and what you need for your workflow. Now, as we take one step down, you'll notice that we have our different tabs. Now, the tabs within OneNote for the web are going to be identical to what you would normally see within the desktop version of the Microsoft applications. You'll see some familiar tabs, such as our File tab, our Home tab, and Insert tab. What you'll notice between the different Microsoft applications is that the tabs and groups up above will vary depending on the applications that you're using. Well, we have some tabs that do cross-reference between the different applications, such as File, Home, and Insert. There will be tabs specific to the applications you're working in. In this case, we do have a Draw tab specifically for OneNote, as that functionality is built in. Now, with the idea of tabs and groups, you'll notice that we have a few icons showing the different groups and actions we can take within OneNote. Now, this is going to be what we're going to call the simplified view, using just very simple icons to be able to navigate and find specific actions you want to take within your active OneNote page. You'll notice to the far right-hand side that we have a little drop-down arrow. And this drop-down arrow will allow you to choose between the simplified ribbon, which we have showing right now, or if you like, you can choose the classic ribbon. This will open up to a much more familiar sight when it comes to working within your tabs and groups. Now, we are going to spend some time in each one of these tabs just showing a few different items that you can use. But before that, we first need to actually break down what we see down below and what takes up most of the screen with OneNote. Now, you'll notice that we have three major sections down below that we can work in. To the far right-hand side, and what takes up most of the screen as we see here, is going to be our OneNote page. This is where all the action happens within OneNote. This is where we can put in any information, any sort of notes, any reference material that we need to be able to access and use for a later date. Now, to the left-hand side, you'll then see that we have our notebook section. Now, this notebook section will be broken up into three parts. We have our pages to the right-hand side in this sort of panel. Now, pages are again going to be where you can access all the different parts of your notebook. And to a bigger extent, we have our sections. Now, when we're talking about sections and pages, what we want to think about is how can we take an idea and break it down to a more specific point. So we can take an idea such as our workday or maybe our department. We can have our section be the different departments or the different projects that we work on, and the pages can be the specifics of each of those. Again, once we start building out our notebook, we'll have a better visual of how that looks. Now, the third part that we're going to talk about within our notebook section down below is going to be the upper part where we see, again, Washington DVA, or the name of the notebook that we want to use. Clicking on that drop down arrow, you'll see that you have access to all the different notebooks that you have viewed and used recently. We see Washington DVA as the notebook we just started. We also see this volunteer plan for February notebook that I have also accessed. This is how you'll be able to swap between the different notebooks that you use. You'll see the most recent notebooks listed up above, but if you want to access more notebooks, you can click on the More Notebooks option. This will open up a new tab. You may need to sign in once again, and once you do, this will bring you over to your OneNote environment. We'll give it a little bit of time to load, and you'll see that this opens up our same notebook. Now, the more notebooks and the more OneNotes that you use and have access to, you'll be able to pull from a list of notebooks eventually once that does grow. You'll also see that there is an option to create a brand new notebook as well. You can essentially create as many notebooks as you need based on your preferences and what exactly you need for your group. So again, we're just going to make sure that we are working within our DVA. So we'll go ahead and pull that up. And now to the left-hand side, you'll notice that we have two icons. Now, first we have the icon allowing us to open and close our panel to the right-hand side with our notebooks. Now, depending on what you're doing, it may be beneficial to have more screen real estate to be able to work in. So if you click on the icon that looks like 3 books, this will collapse your panel, opening up much more space for you to work in. The next icon you'll find is going to be your search icon. Now again, the search icon is actually going to be a very powerful tool when it comes to navigating your notebooks. Now again, right now, we don't really have that much going on for the notebook we're working in. But what you'll soon find is once you have many different sections, once each of those sections have different pages, you'll find that having to find specific pieces of information can prove to be a little difficult. So what you can do is you can use the search bar here to type in a keyword, and down below you'll be able to search between the different sections or the specific pages that you're working on at that moment in time. So regardless of whatever you're trying to find, so long as you have a general idea of where you want to look via those sections or pages and have a keyword, you'll generally be able to find what you're looking for. Now, with all of that talk out of the way of just navigating and talking about what we have in front of us right now, let's go ahead and start building out our notebook. Now, there are a few different ways that you can start out building your notebooks. You can either click in the notebook section to the right itself, or you can click on Add Section or Add Page. This will allow you to create a brand new environment to work in, and it'll essentially allow us to start using our OneNote. So let's go ahead and click into our notebook to the right. And the first thing we need to do is we need to name our section. Now, when it comes to naming a section, again, you want to have something that is not too broad, but just broad enough to where you can expand on it in the varying pages that you're going to be working in. In this case, I know that for the upcoming month of March, we have quite a few different things that we're going to be working on. So I'd like to go ahead and create a section specifically for our March plan. So let's go ahead and name this our March plan. We then click OK, and you'll see to the left-hand side, our new tab or section has been created, and we now have a new page. The nice thing about creating new pages is that it will give you a timestamp as to when that page was created. So this is a nice way of being able to keep track of how many pages are being added to any notebook, keeping an eye on how much information is currently being worked on. There are, again, many different ways you can use those timestamps and gain whatever sort of insight it is that you're looking for. Now we need to go ahead and add a title to our page. Now, this is technically optional as you don't necessarily need to add a title to your page. You can essentially just navigate down into the bar itself or into your OneNote environment and begin working. Maybe you're not necessarily sure of how you want to title the page. Again, no big issue with that. You can come back once you have some information filled out on your page. Now, as we continue to fill out our notebook, we will be going through the different tabs and just seeing what sort of options we have. Now, again, within our Home tab, you will find some familiar groups. You will find our Undo and Redo group to the left-hand side, which can help undo and redo specific actions that take place on screen. If you've ever had the issue where you're typing something out, such as if we start typing out a sentence, so we can go ahead and type out March project plan overview. If you ever had the moment where you accidentally delete everything on screen, you can always use the undo group to quickly undo that action. You can also redo that action if you're looking to compare and contrast how your OneNote looks between varying pieces of information that's on screen. Now you'll see that we have our clipboard group. Now the clipboard group will allow you to quickly copy and paste specific items that you can then paste into other notebooks or sections. You'll also have your format painter. Now the format painter is actually going to be a very interesting tool, as this will help ensure that everything on the notebook is formatted correctly. And what we mean by that is, let's say that we have a few pieces of information that are of varying sizes or varying fonts. So let's go ahead and use Altabi for example. And so we can type in a quick sentence like, make sure that PAL finishes filling out the notebook. And we can also add something such as gather all contact information. Now, this is just me typing things out, but there may be points in time where you copy and paste information from different documents. Maybe you copy and paste different items from a website and you keep that source formatting, and it might not look the way that you need. In this case, what you can do is you can highlight the fonts and size that you want. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger, make it 26. Let's say that we have an entire paragraph or a few lines that are this size and this font. What I can do is I can highlight the original font size that I want to use, click on Format Painter, and now if I hover over, you'll notice when I hover over a word, we see a little paintbrush to the left of my cursor. If I hold the left mouse button and drag it over, you'll see that all the formatting will convert to whatever that original highlight was. I know for myself personally, when I work within OneNote and I'm copying and pasting different pieces of information, if everything isn't looking exactly how I want it to, it drives me crazy. So being able to focus on just getting the information in your notebook and worrying about the formatting later can save you a lot of headaches and ease your mind as you move forward. We'll have again our font group, which is fairly succinct throughout the other Microsoft applications. We have the varying styles that we can use as well. So if you want to use different headings to help break out different sections of your page, you can use that here as well. But one of the things that differentiates OneNote from any of the other applications starts as we move further to the right, which is going to be tags. Now, tags is going to be a visual representation of information on screen, and you can make do with whatever that information is for you. But let's go ahead and fill out a few key pieces of information. So I'm going to go ahead and click over to the right hand side in my OneNote. And we're going to go ahead and just fill out some contact information, as that is something that we need to do that I added on my list to the left hand side. And actually, to that point, that can bring us to our first tag, which is going to be the to do tag. Let's go ahead and highlight these two lines here and say that these are lines that I need to focus on and what I need to complete for the day. If I go over to my tags and I select to do, you'll notice to the left hand side that we now have two checkboxes. What I can do now is as I continue to work, I can check off each item on this list to make sure that I'm finishing whatever tasks I have. In this case, I do again still need to gather contact information. So I want to make sure that I have the contact information for anyone higher up that I might need to contact if I need help. In this case, we'll go ahead and put Grace's contact information down. That includes her phone number, as well as her work email. Now, again, right now, I understand what this information is to the right. But if I share this notebook, some people might not understand what this information is. Is this supposed to be my contact information? Is this supposed to be for something else? I'm not really sure. So what you can do is you can use tags to help signify specific items. So in this case, for contact info, I can use this contact tag. And as we go further, I can also add one for phone. So phone number. And last one we can use is going to be for email. Now for email, we're going to scroll down and you'll see a few different options. We see this little send an email option that we can use, and I can have that stand for Grace's email. Now, for anybody that jumps into our OneNote right now, once I share it and they were to take a look, they can immediately tell, oh, so this is contact information. I can add little notes here and there. This just goes to show that you could use these tags for virtually anything. Though keep in mind, if you are going to be working in a notebook with other people, you may want to have some sort of glossary or something within your notebook itself, just to ensure that we're all aligned and we're all on the same page as to what each tag is supposed to be and what it stands for. Now, as we move further to the right, you will see that we have our spell check ready for us to use, and we also have dictate. Now, dictation is going to be a nice feature within OneNote as it allows you to just have that train of thought just kind of flow. So rather than having to worry about typing everything out to make sure that it's all grammatically correct. Maybe you just have some ideas that you just want to put on paper. Sometimes you can get lost in just trying to type everything out and gather all your thoughts. Whereas with dictation, all you need to do is click on the microphone icon itself, and this will allow you to use your computer's microphone to be able to speak. Maybe there's just a quick idea that comes in mind. You can open your OneNote, hit dictate, say what you need to say, and come back and think about it later. Now, unfortunately, due to our demo environment today, I actually don't have access to my microphone for this, but just understanding that you do have the option to dictate if you need. Now, as we move to the next tab, you'll see that we have our Insert tab. Now, this Insert tab will have those different groups, such as our Notebook section or Notebook group, allowing us to create a brand new page or notebook section. In this case, let's actually go ahead and create a brand new page. We're going to call this our Insert page. And again, this is where you don't necessarily need to worry about naming a page right away. I didn't really know what to name our first page, but since we're creating a page for the Insert tab, it just makes sense to come back and name this Home. Now within your Insert tab, you'll have the option to add a table. You can add as large as a 10 by 8 table on screen, and you'll notice that this will add a new tab called Table. This will give you options such as being able to highlight and select the entire table, deleting or inserting rows or columns, and being able to play around with shading as well as the alignment of text. Whether you need that text centered or put on the left-hand side, maybe you want it put center, or you want it all the way to the right. Now, as we move one step to the right, you'll notice that we have our pictures group. Now, for your pictures group, you will have a few different options to choose from when it comes to adding a picture. You can add a picture from your Files tab. So maybe you have a file that you want to insert for a visual reference. You can add that here within the From a File option. If your device that you're using does have a camera, you can also use the camera to take a photo, or you could insert from online. Now this will pull up Microsoft Bing, so you can type in whatever sort of key search word you want to use. In this case, let's go ahead and type in something such as meeting. This is where we can find a visual reference. Maybe you want to have something that invokes the feeling of a meeting. We can choose whatever picture we want, and we can then click insert. You'll also notice that there is a checkbox up here, and this will toggle on and off the Creative Commons only, meaning that these images that you find within your search when that option is toggled will generally be available for creative use within your organization. We'll go ahead and click Insert, and we'll see that our image is currently being added. And you'll notice that we have this little text box that has the image. We're going to come back to this in a little bit, but we're going to bring this to the top, and we are going to move to the left-hand side. And the next option we're going to see is being able to attach files. Now you'll have two different options. You can insert a file as a printout, or you can insert a file as an attachment. Depending on what the purposes of the file are, you will have the varying results. When you insert a file as an attachment, this will open up your File Explorer and you can find the file that you want to work on. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use this Final Agreement Northwind Traders document and click Open. You'll see that an attachment is being added, and this is going to act very similarly to an attachment you would find within an email. If you double click on the file itself, it'll ask you if you'd like to download a local copy. This way you can have one centralized document and have it readily available whenever you need. Now, the next option that we're going to find is going to be Insert a File Printout. Now, the process looks exactly the same. We're going to go ahead and use our Final Agreement Northwind Traders document and click Open. You'll see that we now have larger images on screen, and once they load up, you'll see that what we've actually done is we have inserted the document, our Final Agreement Northwind Traders document. Now, the reason why you would add a file as a printout versus an attachment really comes down to what is the purpose of the file being added to the page. If it is added within our notebook as a printout, what this gives us the ability to do is to use our Draw tab. Now, we'll come back to our Insert tab in just a moment, but just to show that with the Draw tab, you have the ability to use pens or highlighters. With that in mind, you can now come into the printout document and make annotations. You're able to go through and circle, highlight, and exit out specific items within the page itself. This helps when it comes to editing a document, and it helps it feel a lot more dynamic versus just having to search through and type in notes here and there. We're going to go back to our Insert tab, and as we move further to the right, you'll also see an option to insert links. This is where you'll be able to type in whatever display text you need and add whatever links you have to. So maybe you want to insert a video that you found online that might be beneficial for the rest of the group. You can type in the display text, it'll highlight as a clickable link, and once users click on that link, they'll go directly to the link that you have inserted. As you move further to the right, you'll also see that you have the option of inserting audio. So maybe there are some audio notes that you want to put into the notebook. Why would we use audio notes? Well, that comes down to a time question as well as a preference question. As there are some points in time where you can spend as much time as you need typing out all the details, and people still might not be able to understand or get on the same page as you. So adding a little audio note can help to ensure that we're all on the same page without having to type out too much. Now, as we move further to the right, you'll see that we have a meeting details option. Now, this meeting details option is going to tie specifically with Microsoft Teams. I'm going to go ahead and open up a new page real quick, and I'm going to click on meeting details. This will open a panel on the right hand side, in which case I will need to sign in. I'll have to make sure I sign into the correct account. And we'll now see that your meetings will show on the right hand side. If you click on that meeting when you're on a blank page, you'll see the meeting name take over as the title of the page, and all the information that's tied to that meeting is now here, including your invitation message, the meeting links, the participants, and even leaving a little section down below for notes. So if you're the type of person that's going to be taking notes on a specific meeting that you're a part of, this helps ensure that you have a dedicated page specifically to that meeting. And the nice thing about this too is that you also have access to your Outlook items. So if you click on Outlook item, this will open up a new tab, bringing you to Outlook, in which case you'll be able to join into the meeting from here, or you can accept or decline it. Again, the nice thing about the Office suites in general is that the applications will work side by side and within each other. So there's a lot of flexibility in being able to work within any of the Microsoft applications. Let's go ahead and create a new page now, and we're going to name this our Draw page. Now within your Draw page, as we saw earlier, you'll have the option to choose your different tools up above. By default, we have our type tool, and we can choose between our eraser, pen, or highlighter. Now, if the device you're using is a touchscreen device, you can also use the draw with touch option to be able to use your finger as a stylus to be able to annotate and work. You'll find different colors that you can choose to the right hand side within your color group, and you'll see a little drop down that you can use to choose other colors. You'll also see that you can choose how thick you want your drawing lines to be. So depending on what you're doing, maybe you want a thicker highlighting tool and you want a much thinner pencil tool. Again, it all comes down to personal preference and what you need to use. So you can use your pen to circle specific items. Maybe there's little annotation notes that you want to write over here. Again, you have a lot of flexibility. And one thing that you might have noticed while we've been going throughout these different tabs is specifically to the right-hand side. You'll see that there's a little cloud icon, and this is actually going to show your sync status for your notebook. By default, you'll see that the cloud icon has a little bit of a check mark. That might be a little hard to see with how small the icon can be, but whenever you add any information to your notebooks, you'll notice that the cloud icon will go away and you'll see a syncing icon play. In this case, watch that corner as I write something within this notebook. That lets you know that your notebook is currently syncing. So any changes that you make in any of the pages will be saved. So even if we were to X out of our notebook right now, let's go ahead and do that. And we were to go back to our recent tab, we're going to refresh. We'll now see our Washington DVA notebook is here. If we click into it, we'll be brought right back to our notebook. And if we go to our draw page, you'll see that our S that we drew is still here. Now, another thing that you may have noticed while we've been adding information onto our screen is the page size of your notebook. This is going to be one of the things that makes OneNote stand out from the other Microsoft applications, and that's essentially how endless the notebook can be. You'll notice that as we were adding different images, as we were adding the documents onto the page, that the page itself began to increase. This is because OneNote is essentially going to expand every time you add new information on screen. You don't have to worry about having a limit. You don't have to worry about having to have everything formatted exactly. You saw as we were working, we have these little text boxes that pop up whenever we click into a new section of our notebook. This means that we're able to break our information out into these different boxes and be able to organize them however we need. Maybe I want to have my documents one on top of the other. Maybe I want to move the meeting picture to where the table is and swap them. You'll see that I'm able to make these changes pretty easily, and I can adjust them however I want because we have this different style of formatting. And so now I don't have to worry about putting everything exactly how I need it. If I break it up into those different boxes, it's as simple as having to just stack things one on top of the other. Now, the next tab that we're going to take a look at is our View tab. The View tab will have a few different things that we can change and use. We have the Reading View, which is going to remove the ribbon up above, focusing and giving us the option to just read whatever we have in the notebook. This helps ensure that we are accessing the notebook for referential sake and that we don't accidentally make any changes when we don't mean to. You'll see there's an edit option, which will let us go back into the original view and be able to make whatever edits we need. Now, the next option that we're going to see for notebook views in our notebook view group is going to be Immersive Reader. Immersive Reader is an accessibility tool that gives different reading tools for users to be able to gain the insight that they need from the notebooks that they work in. As you saw within the previous notebook, for some, the text that I was using might be too small for them to read. Within the Immersive Reader, you'll notice that we have a few different icons in the top right-hand corner. Now, these icons vary from our text preferences, being able to visually increase the size of the text that we have, or decrease it if we need to. There's an option called increase spacing. Now, by default, for some users, this may work out just fine, but for some users that may have a hard time with so many letters stuck together one by one, you may want to give each word and each letter its own space to breathe. And so increased spacing ensures that you are able to break down each part of the word at your own pace. You'll also have different font tools that you can choose as well, whether it be Calibri, Sitka, or even Comic Sans if that's what you like to use. As we move further, you'll also find different themes that you can choose from as well. These themes can vary depending on what your mood might be, what color you might feel like using that day. But for accessibility purposes, there is a dark theme that you can use. This removes the white background of OneNote and replaces it with a dark background. For those of us that work within our computers on a regular basis, you can find that white backgrounds within our workday can be really fatiguing to the eyes. You may start rubbing your eyes a little bit more. You might start to get a little more tired than you normally would. But having a dark theme helps to combat that fatigue that you might be feeling and allows you to work more efficiently as well as more comfortably. You'll also see that we have our grammar tools here. So if you're working with somebody that might be learning English as a second language, this might be a great tool to help them break down the other parts of speech into their varying parts as we see down below. We'll also see our reading tools, reading preferences, specifically when it comes to line focus. Now, again, the information that we have on screen isn't necessarily that much that we need to worry about, but as we continue to add paragraphs and paragraphs to our OneNote, for some users, being able to read through that can prove to be a challenge. And so line focus allows you to focus in on one part up to 3 lines, all the way up to 5, depending on how zoomed in you are to your text. You'll also see that we have Picture Dictionary. Now, Picture Dictionary means that if you were to click on any one of the words on screen, you'll see that there's a little match down below. So you can click onto each one of these words, and depending on the word, there might be a visual representation of that word for better understandability across multiple people and multiple teams. Along with that, if the word is and the language is supported, you'll even be able to hear how the language or how the word is pronounced. To that note, you'll also be able to choose from varying languages. You can choose from up to one of 80 languages to translate the text in your OneNote. And depending on the language, if the language is supported, you'll even be able to see the translation of the word. In this case, let's go ahead and use something such as French. You can choose to translate word by word. So if you click onto the word itself, you'll be able to see and hear what the word sounds like in the original language, as well as the translated language. You can go word by word, or you can even translate entire documents and swap between the translated text and the original text. Along with that, you'll also see down below that OneNote can also read to you. Now again, because the device we're using for our demo today doesn't allow me to use a microphone or a speaker, we can't necessarily demo this out, but you'll see that we're able to have OneNote read out to us. And if the language that we translate to, again, is provided and is supported, you'll even be able to hear that language, read the text read out in that language. You have preferences that you can choose in terms of speed as well as voice selection down below. So you can really ensure that if you want to multitask, maybe you want to have OneNote open in one page and have it read to you while you're working, that can be a viable option as well. And once you're finished using Immersive Reader, you can use the back arrow in order to go back to our original view. Now you'll see that we have our zoom options here as well, where we can zoom in as close as we need to for the text, and we can always zoom back out to the original page as well. You can choose different colors for the pages as well. Again, this is more of a preferential thing, but this may come in handy in being able to quickly identify specific pages for specific topics. You'll also have an option called Show Author. Now, show authors will come in handy when you're working with multiple people, as this will help keep track of who has been adding content to each page. In this case, you see little brackets with my name to the right of them, letting myself as well as others, once I do share this notebook, know that I have been adding items to the notebook and pages. You also have page versions. Page versions will allow you to view the different iterations of a page that you've been working on. In this case, with our insert page, we'll see that we have 3 specific ones. As we go through each one, you'll see that the notebook will change slightly. This is the top one, meaning this is the version that we have at the moment. But as we go back step by step, you'll notice specific changes. Like the second one right here doesn't show the printout that we added earlier. And if we go back to the first one, all we see is the chart or the table and the picture that we added. So you can go through, and if you click on more options at the top, you can choose to hide the different versions, restore a version, or you can even delete a version if you find that it is no longer needed or redundant to have. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and delete this page as well as the second page, since we don't necessarily need them, as the most up-to-date page we have right now is the one that we need. If you click on deleted notes, you'll be able to view any of the deleted notes that you have. Keep in mind, this does not include versions. This means that if we were to delete a specific page, let's go ahead and delete our draw page, for example. We can right click on it and we can delete the page. If we go to deleted notes, we'll give it a quick refresh. We should be able to find that page there. There it is. And we can restore it if we needed to. Now, as we move further to the right, you'll also see that we have our accessibility checker. Now, within our Insert tab, if you click on Accessibility Checker, it'll take a look at all the different pages that you have, and it'll let you know if that page or that item is not accessible. When you click on it, it'll highlight that specific item, and it'll let you know that it is not currently accessible. Now, if we right-click on an image, for example, there's going to be an option called Alternative Text. And that's going to allow you to add a description of the picture, and this can be added to pictures, documents, as well as tables. So that way, anybody that is viewing the content, whether they may be or may not be visually impaired, can still get the same amount of information. Now, as you move to the right-hand side, you'll see that we have our Tell Me What to Do bar. Now this tell me what to do bar will actually will be very good for you, as this will allow you to type in specific keywords for actions that you want to take. So if I type in the word fonts, for example, we'll see that we have an action results section. This will allow me to find items such as changing my font size, changing the color, italicizing it, or superscripting it. So what this means is, even if you're not necessarily sure or remember where a specific action or group is, as long as you have some vague idea of what it is, you can type in the keyword up above and be able to find that action within your notebook. Now, as we move further to the right, the last area we're going to take a look at is going to be the share option. Clicking on Share will open up a window on screen, allowing you to choose your sharing preferences for the notebook that you're about to send out. Now, you'll see that there's a link up above. When you click on that link, it'll allow you to choose between a few different options. Now, anyone with the link will be grayed out, specifically to help ensure that we keep information internal. The next option that you'll see, and this is generally going to be the safest option, is people in your organization with the link. So in this case, for our demo tenant, we have State of Microsoft as the organization that I work with. But if you have for DVA, you'd want to see something fairly similar, whether it be your own agency or within a higher up agency that you are a part of under that umbrella. This will mean that anybody with a work email will be able to sign in and view the document, or view your notebook in this case. People with existing access will pertain to people that already have access to the notebook, and specific people will allow you to choose specific people in your organization to share. You'll see that you can toggle on and off editing, so if you want to share the notebook for collaboration, you'll want to make sure this is checked. If you want to share the notebook for referential sake, then you'll want to uncheck it. We'll click Apply, and we'll now see that there's a pencil icon with a slash letting us know that anyone that we send this to will not be able to edit. From here, you have a few different ways of sharing the notebook. You can type in the names or emails or groups of people that you want to send the notebook to, and you can add a little message letting them know why you want to share the notebook. The next option that you have is clicking on the Outlook option in order to open up Outlook and be able to send out a link. So let's go ahead and type in Chris's name. We'll give that a quick moment to load. And we'll change this to people with in Microsoft. And there we go. We can type in and add Chris. And you'll see that we can click send. If we click on Outlook, it will open up a new tab within Outlook, allowing us to add that notebook and add a subject line, as well as CCing anybody that we need to. Now, depending on how many people you're sending your notebook out to, you'll have varying options and varying ranges. If you're going to send it to different departments of large groups, then sending it with an Outlook makes more sense. If you're only sharing it with a handful of people, it may come in handy to copy a link and send that link out, whether it is again through Outlook or sending it via chat within Microsoft Teams. Now, just before I hand off for any closing notes, we do have our Help tab here, which will open up a panel or a little window giving you access to support.office.com. If you want to, though, you can go straight to support.office.com by typing it in the bar up above, and this will bring you to our support page. From here, you'll be able to click on OneNote and be able to find any information that you'd like to when it comes to taking notes within OneNote, maybe formatting your notes, learning more about the draw and sketch features, or learning a little bit more about sharing and syncing. Now, this will be for general use, so you may need to contact and partner up with your IT if there are some organization-specific questions you may have. Now, with that, I'd like to go ahead and hand it off to Grace for any closing notes.
Pal, thank you so much for a fantastic OneDrive for the web session. Just doing a quick glance over in the chat, the only question that we had was actually, Mark, your question here, which is, are there any limitations on sharing a notebook outside of the organization, and do they need to have OneNote themselves? So for the latter half of that question, yes, whomever you are sharing that OneNote with, they will need access at least to OneNote on the web to be able to open anything that you are sharing. Regarding the external access or how that sharing is set within DVA, that will need to be deferred to the IT or admin department to see what those settings are when it comes to external sharing. And of course, if there's anybody on the call that may have some insight there, please feel free to come off of mute as well. Outside of that, there are no questions in the chat. We do have just about a minute, so we want to give it a quick pause to see if anybody has any last questions before we wrap up. So please feel free to either come off of mute or pop your questions into the chat here. All right. Well, we will close out with everyone's favorite saying. Well, actually, there's no time to give back. In that case, we want to thank everyone for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedules for our OneNote session. As a reminder, we will share out this recording after we conclude, and that'll be shared out internally as a resource. We wish everyone a fantastic start to their week and a great week ahead. Thank you all so much.